we're creating about as many jobs as those other metros combined.
So Bend hates to be compared to Boulder.
We could have a whole hour conversation about this. I think it sets us up another kind of foundation.
It's pretty forward-thinking, developments for an old busted-up sawmill town. These conversations are brought to you by the Ladd Group, Bend's leading real estate team. Help continue this BENDbeat conversation by subscribing, sharing, and leaving us a review. Okay, well, I'm here with Amy Tykeson, and I'm particularly excited about this interview. You've done a lot for this community, and I really appreciate you being here.
You bet, Brian. It's fun to meet you today.
So this is the first time we've met. I just want to give our listeners a little bit of a background on who you are as a person. You've done great things. So Amy Tykeson, you're the former CEO of BendBroadband. You were instrumental in guiding that company to, digital technology, really becoming a partner in the community. You're also the managing trustee for the Tykeson Family Foundation, which supports healthcare, right? Healthcare and education in Oregon.
And the arts.
And the arts, okay. And just from researching online, I was able to find numerous boards and nonprofits and startups and higher education that you've been involved with in Central Oregon. And then I think what really sums it all up is the Chamber of Commerce named you the Person of the Year for 2018. So I'm humble.
They ran out of names.
I don't think so. There's a lot of great people in this community, and
you.
I appreciate you being here.
You betcha.
So, before we get into, all the things that you've done in this town, let's start with kind of what's your origin story? How did you find Bend and why are you here?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting path. Like everybody has a story about how they ended up here. But I had been, my dad and I were involved with our company, BendBroadband, together. And I was the CEO, but managing the company remotely. So we had a general manager located here in Bend.
Okay.
And when things changed for the company and we needed to make a move on that leadership on site, I think it was my brother-in-law that said, "Good Lord, Amy, everybody wants to move to Bend, but you're the only person I know that could." So anyway, my husband was able to transition in his medical practice to get over here. Our kids were both in middle school and they were game. And so in 2004, we made the decision to move over here full time.
Okay, and where did you come from?
Portland.
You came from Portland,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And obviously your kids, if 2004, have they flown the coop?
They have. One's in New York and the other's in LA. So they've gone their ways, but they love coming home to Bend.
Okay. So tell me a little bit personal. What would not everyone know about you? What do you like to do? Do you like to ride horses, hike? What's kind of your favorite activity here in Bend?
Well, gosh, it's hard to just pick one thing. It depends on the season, of course, but I do love a good walk with my four-legged boys.
Okay.
And then another favorite thing for me is engaging with smart people around interesting topics. I have to admit, that's how I fill up my bucket. There's so many smart people in Bend focusing on critical important issues and opportunities, and I do find myself filling up my bucket through that means, of course. And then I love skiing and getting out hiking like everybody else. I mean, gosh, you live here. We're sitting in this studio right here, and I've seen 3 flocks of geese. They're probably going to Drake Park, but I like to, they're local too. So it is a lovely place to be.
Well, good. Yeah. I mean, I have a similar affinity for this town. And what's been interesting is as we've gotten this podcast off the ground and we did our first interviews, all I keep on hearing about what makes Bend so special is the people. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of beautiful places in the Northwest. I think we're particularly blessed here. I'm biased. But what from Kirk Schuler to Jim Shell to Roger Lee to Gwen Weisling, everyone mentions the people. Mm-hmm. I assume you find that as well, but why are all these interesting people sitting out hiding here in Central Oregon? It's not on the map. When I first told people I moved to Central Oregon, they're like, you moved to where? And but the dynamic collection of people that we have here is incredible. And why do you think that we're such a collecting Why do people come here?
Well, I think the way I kind of look at Bend is it's been the perfect storm of opportunity, really.
Yeah.
In probably in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And the people, by far, as you said, are the foundation for the success of this town. But I think in addition to that, through the efforts of these people, whether it's Roger Lee or Bill Smith or Mike Holleran or you name it, fill in the blank, they have shared their talents and gifts to make this town really amazing. I mean, you look at the air service that we have. I mean, that was Roger Lee.
Yep.
The broadband, people could come here in 1997 and have broadband that they couldn't even get in California. So people thought, oh, I can move here and do my business.
Yeah.
You have the old mill we're looking out on right here. I mean, amazing. These smart developments, the whole startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
Opportunity Knocks that Jim Shell started. So I think it's the seeds that have come from these smart people.
Yeah.
And then the other part of this too is our ability to hold on to good people. I mean, you look at Roger Lee's been here almost 20 years.
Yep.
Eric King has been city manager for over 10, probably 15 has been involved. And the list is long. And so I think people kind of get... I don't know, resistance is futile, right?
Yeah.
So you become part of the ecosystem and get attached to those relationships, and then new people come in and add even more savory sauce to the mix that make it even more interesting and important as we move forward.
Yeah. And the other the thread that I'm finding through all these discussions is the word collaboration.
Yeah.
Nobody comes here by accident, and and especially in the past, I think it's changing now, but people didn't move here for jobs, and what I've been finding is that all the people that have been able to, be successful here, they had somebody else open the door for them. They feel the responsibility to open up for somebody else. And I find that sentimentality or that sentiment, throughout our community.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't find that in all communities, or I think it's actually pretty rare.
Well, I think partly it's a little bit of the DNA about Bend.
Yeah.
The fact that the community is so isolated, and you could not count on the cavalry coming in from Salem to rescue something. In fact, it took a long time, I think, for the state government really to recognize all the qualities of Central Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we've had some very good leaders here, like Tim Knope, who was critical in OSU Cascades, for example, and Greg Walden, who was single-handedly helped with our airport expansion, for instance. But I think some of that pioneering spirit, and if you want something done, you collaborate and get it done here with smart people and engage the resources outside the area if needed.
Yeah.
But it is quite remarkable how much gets done by people in Central Oregon that want to see change.
Well, I just had the opportunity to speak with Gwen Wisely, and we were talking about Bethlehem Inn, and it was the same way. Nobody else was going to do it for them.
Right.
And we're going to get the community together and build what we need, you know. And in a matter of a couple of years, they put together $9 million of funds for a homeless shelter. And there were some, there was support by the state and the county and whatnot. But most of it was just bootstrap. We're gonna figure out how to do it,
Yeah. Well, and I love that about the community. People like Gwen, who is a passionate leader who has a vision, and she's able to get people connected with that idea, whether it's the Rotaries, for example, that stepped up. And I mean, it is a beautiful facility, and I feel so proud for her that she was able to pull that off with her team and really put together a game-changing facility for people in transition.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of economic growth that hasn't benefited everyone equally. Obviously, every town has its challenges. But what I find in this town, and you were talking about the DNA of the people, is this town was built on optimism, right? And every once in a while, someone knew when they moved to town, they start complaining about what's not perfect about the town. But when you speak with the people that have been here a long time, pessimism is not common. It's a can-do attitude, and it's collaborative, and there are some amazing people. Well, there's a lot of amazing people doing some pretty big things here in a little town of 100,000 people in the middle of Central Oregon. And and I just want to continue to share that story. So before we get into some of the things about education and some of the other efforts that you've helped support and really foster in our community, I'd like to kind of take one step back and say, really, what does it mean to be a Bend citizen? A lot of towns, when you live in a town or you live in a city, but you're not a true member of the society. And what's so interesting about Bend is that it has open doors. Everyone can be a full citizen day one. I came from a ski town in Colorado, and you weren't a true local until you'd been there multiple generations. And I don't think that's the case here. Everyone's welcome to be a citizen day one, but really, what is the responsibility? What responsibilities come with the title of being a Bend citizen?
Yeah. So I love that question. And I think, I have a couple answers for it. First, I feel like it's incumbent upon people coming here to learn more about the community. It's a beautiful community. Many people come here because they vacationed here and they want to find a better life for their family, or have a mix of outdoors with interesting work. And I think all of those things are big factors in the healthy growth that we've been able to realize, and I'm grateful for that. But we do have, like all communities, like you said, there's things under the surface that aren't working very well for some people here.
Yeah.
And I think because we are such a can-do kind of community, that we want to be stewards, I think, for this next period of time to leave Bend better than we found it. Yeah. And so what that means to me is, for people coming to the community, is to look beyond, say, the West Side or Mount Bachelor or the cool trails or this or that, to some of to the unmet opportunities that we need to address as a community. There's a lot of people that are living at subsistence levels, and we do have a very diverse economy here, but a big part of our economy is retail and tourism and so forth, where people are maybe not don't have much of a buffer if things go wrong. And so, I guess for me, I just like to see people coming here, sharing more of their time, treasure, and talents, and getting involved. I see a lot of people doing that, and I would love to see more of that happening as we move forward, because frankly, it takes a village, and a great community doesn't happen by itself. It happens because of the people that are here and the people that are coming, engaging around opportunities that we can fix together.
Brian Ladd here. I hope you're enjoying the conversation and find this dialogue relevant to really what it means to live and work and play in this amazing community. As Bend's leading real estate team, we take our role seriously in representing both buyers and sellers at the absolute highest standards of our industry. For more information on how we can help, feel free to visit our website at bendpropertysource.com or text LADD1, LADD1 to 88,000. What I love is the fact that in a 100,000 person town, how many nonprofits we have. And you would think that with that many nonprofits, there would be a sense of scarcity, but it's not. Even our nonprofits work together, and they're fighting for the same resources. But I think it speaks to, the DNA of the town. Yeah. So and I don't want to focus on negative, but how would, and I struggle with this a little bit. There's a lot of people that come to Bend and see Bend for the snapshot in time it is today. They walk in and it's a perfect and idyllic town. We have a park system that is second to none in the world or in the U.S. And they can afford a house, they move in, and they don't want it to change. What would be your first reaction to someone who says, it's perfect, don't change it, I don't want more growth, I don't want to see, a university in my backyard? How would you respond to that?
Well, I think we all know change is tough.
Yeah.
But it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And my feeling is, how do you manage that change? And so you address the change in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to stop people from coming here, and I think it would be bad if we did, because look at
Sure.
all the smart and wonderful people that have come to our town,
Yeah.
that are part of it now and making it even better. And so I think, look, I don't know that. I guess I don't really understand why people would want that anyway.
Yeah.
Because I just think back on how Bend was, say, in 2004 when I was looking at moving over here full time,
Yeah.
and it was unbridled growth.
Yep.
It was actually scary growth, I would have to say.
Yeah. It was-
And while the downturn was horrible, and I wouldn't want to repeat the severity of a downturn like that again,
yeah.
I think it actually saved our town, because we couldn't take it. We didn't have the infrastructure in place to handle that kind of growth in that short, compressed period of time.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a diverse economy like we do now.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a big wake-up call for Bend.
Yeah.
And I think it gave us a real second chance to try to get things right on this next kind of, what do you call it, run-up that we've had in the economy.
Sure.
So anyway, I feel like if people want the town to stay the same, then maybe this isn't the town for them.
Yeah.
And if people want the town to stay good,
Yeah.
then they need to get involved and help it grow and prosper in some new ways that we don't even know what those are. But I think with all the people we have involved, it's probably going to be good.
Yeah, it's awfully exciting. I went to a city planning meeting a couple years ago, and the city manager actually opened it and saying, I'm just going to set the tone for the meeting, that Bend was built on growth. And we are going to move forward and help this town grow and change.
Yeah.
And that was the opening statement for the meeting. And it was encouraging that they had the courage to state that. And this is not unbridled growth. And I think we need to keep in perspective that, frankly, this is growth done right.
Mm-hmm.
I've got family in some of the other amazing towns in the West, from Colorado to Montana. My brother's up in Bozeman, and some of the challenges that we see in those towns, they're not addressing them like we are here. What they're stamping out, low density subdivision after low density subdivision that doesn't have the infrastructure to support them. It doesn't have the job growth to support it. And it's kind of hollowing out the core of what those towns are. And I think we've done an awfully good job at, and I shouldn't say we, this town and the leaders have done an awfully good job of planning for that growth. Mm-hmm. And obviously growth is tough and it's never going to be perfect, but I think it was executed pretty well.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things I want to add. And, I guess it was around the 2004-2005 period that I found out about Bend 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric King had just come to town, and he was overseeing that, I think, as an assistant city manager. But it really made me think, gosh, how many towns have a plan? How many towns are thinking ahead to say this was, 25 years into the future?
Yeah.
Because I think we all know if we don't have a plan, we're not going to ever achieve what we want to. I mean, it would be pure luck then, right? And what would that even look like? And so I really have to give kudos to the people that were involved in the initial 2030 plan. There's a group, they're still continuing on with the 2050 initiative. The city of Bend is behind that. And I think that that's all to the good for our community. And then the other part of this too is I'm just so excited by these, the new generation of leaders, community leaders that I see coming in, the Katie Brookses and the Becky Johnsons and the Terry Hawkett's. I mean, the list is long, and it's always dangerous to name names because you forget people. But I mean, those three women, just off the top of my head, are really, really important contributors to where we're going. And there's plenty of other examples in that I could list, but I won't do that right now. Maybe later.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're naming a lot of great things, and I think that what you're talking about, the 2030, and Jim just told me they scrapped it. Now it's 2050 plan. I mean, that alone is worth a discussion. I mean, how many towns are looking 25 years in? Gosh, what are we? 2019, 31 years into the future. I think it's pretty exciting to be part of. Yeah. And I was going to ask you what makes us different from a Boulder or an Austin or a Bozeman or a Boise, but it's probably that, right? That we're willing to look so far into the future.
I think that is a big part of it. And I think what you were saying too about the openness of the community to newcomers. Yeah. And recognizing that we don't have an attitude of, well, we did it that way before and we're going to do it that way again. Yeah. How can we do things different or better? How can we come up with a plan that's more inclusive or that involves more people, or that we hear voices from around the community, not just say from the West Side? Because it's really our town. Yeah. It's all the people that live here and all of the opportunities and issues that we have to address together to keep it good and to help people be successful.
What I'd like to talk about right now is the role of higher education here in this town. When I first started looking at Bend, to try to describe it to friends and family in Colorado, I always said, well, for lack of a better term, it's Boulder without the university. And I can no longer use that because we now have a beautiful university that's under construction, and you were a big part of that. And I think that it's absolutely amazing. But explain to me why you're so passionate about having a true four-year university like Oregon State University here, located right in the heart of Bend.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone knows that having a four-year college degree is a game changer for people's ability to earn a living and contribute to society. Yep. In fact, statistics show that it can result in up to $1 million in earnings over people that don't have one. And so, higher education, I think, equips people to focus in on the world's most vexing problems. Yep. And so if we're able to offer that opportunity primarily to people that live in the Tri-County area that don't have the means, to travel 135 miles over to Corvallis or Eugene to get their degree because of the cost of doing that and other factors, I think it's wonderful and it's required. I mean, I look at when I was at BendBroadband, we had a challenge trying to find workers that had those kinds of experiences in some of the technical jobs and so forth that were in market, because we didn't have a four-year university opportunity at that point. Yeah. And so I think even beyond just the learning that happens for students that are going to that particular school. Yeah. You think about when you walk into, say, Boston, and you just instantly feel smarter because there's so many,
a lot of smart people around you.
Well, and I think that having a university and a community does way more than just educate the students. Yeah. It's a force for good. Yep. And for connection for people to learn more. Yeah. People like you and me that aren't going to school, that maybe there's a lecture, maybe there's an opportunity on the campus that we can go and take our family to. Yeah. And then there's outreach. And I think it also just gives a lot of hope to students in high school and so forth, that there is a choice here locally that they could go to that school. And the programs are amazing. There's a few programs at OSU Cascades that aren't even available anywhere else in Oregon, and maybe even just a few of those programs across the country that we have here that are really tailored because of work with the business community in terms of what employers need from the school in terms of output.
Well, they're able to grow the university as they see fit. You're talking about all the businesses that are helping create new programs for the university, right? Yeah. But both my son and daughter go to Bend Science Station, which is, if you want to give any background on that, I'd love it. But which is integrated right into the campus. And for me to see, be able to drop off my 10-year-old daughter, my 13-year-old son at a campus, at a university, and when they walk in there, their head is held high and their chest is puffed out because they're walking onto a university and they're in elementary and in middle school, and they're doing amazing things. Yeah. And to be, right on a brand new campus, I think that's a experience that's going to really accelerate them into the future. And that opportunity would not have been there.
Yeah, well, it's so cool. So Burmy and his team bring in about 7,000 students from the region to the facility every year.
Yeah.
Right, to teach them science and labs and all of that stuff. And so it's what you're saying about your own children.
Yeah.
Times that giant group. And the other thing I love about the Bend Science Station in its current location is the ability to leverage on the Masters of Teaching and the teaching programs at OSU Cascades, where those teachers in training can observe one of the best science teachers I've ever seen and learn how he does it. And it's magical.
It's one of those gems of the town that it has a tangible energy around it, and it's going to be one of the things that I remember long into the future of why I'm so grateful to raise my family here. I appreciate you being a part of that. So obviously, education is a particular subject that you are passionate about. What other efforts in this town are you passionate about supporting and seeing grow into the future?
Yeah. So a couple of programs come to mind. One is Friends of the Children, which Duncan Campbell started that. It's a national organization and has received many grants, federal grants as well as other kinds of grants. But basically what his program does, it's run here in town by Kim Hatfield, and they work within the school system to identify kids most at risk in kindergarten. And then those children are selected and assigned a mentor. The mentor works with that child and the family that child comes from for their entire K-12 experience. And the statistics are phenomenal in terms of the graduation rates, the kids, no teen pregnancies, the kids are engaged, they're learning things that they might not otherwise have been exposed to help them be successful and go to college. And so our foundation has been a big supporter of that program here in Central Oregon as well as in Eugene. They're starting one there too. And then in addition to that, where we see opportunities, personally, my husband and myself, or with our foundation, we jump in, whether, the hospital was struggling with the building of their new ICU tower. And we were able to step in and join hands with a lot of other donors that were able to step forward and, do what they can. Everybody pitch in, do what they can, like we did. And I mean, the list is long, but I have to say, I feel very fortunate to be able to leverage some of the resources that we obtained through our business chapter and redeploy those resources into the community to help make the community a better place. And that includes, say, the Bend Bulletin, keeping that going, keeping that local, and the importance of having a newspaper. So whether it's a printed newspaper in 5 years, who knows? But it probably will be digital, or there'll be more digital. But I think in terms of having these key assets that we have been lucky enough in this community to acquire, let's just say, our foundation is committed to trying to make sure that we're able to keep the momentum going, and when we can step in and it makes sense and lines up with our mission and all of that, we do.
Well, when you talk about key assets of the town, I think you're firmly in it as one of the key assets. And I'm extremely grateful that, you're part of this community. I think it would be a far different community without you and your foundation. So I just want to express my gratitude there. Is there anything else that you want to talk about today, or is there any particular, person that I think that's worth mentioning to discuss that would be a good subject for, future discussions here on the podcast?
Well, I think I know that there's been some focus lately, deliberate focus on some of the areas around the opportunity gap relating to children.
Okay.
And I do think there is that would be a really great topic to cover. We are so blessed in this town with a lot of nonprofits that are focusing on that very thing.
Okay.
Whether it's Friends of the Children or you name it. There are many experts that know far more than I do, but I do think that would be a wonderful area to take a deeper dive on. Some of that relates to the work the chamber is doing. They just hired today the executive director for their child care desert kind of initiative, let's just call it. And that's a partnership with OSU Cascades and COCC. So that's one aspect here. But Oregon Community Foundation and Julie Leakey and what she's doing with within the schools to help families and children. The list is long, and I think that would be an area where I think some of your listeners might be able to take something away that would be of interest to engage around, because I think it can make a huge difference for our young people.
Well, you're trying to complete that ladder all the way from young children up through, educational opportunities, and then all the way through job growth and in the business environment that we have here. But we have a full path that you're trying to lay out, where we have a dynamic, intact town that, frankly, I think is unmatched just about anywhere.
And I guess if I can add one little closing, I do feel very fortunate to be part of this community. And there are so many talented and capable people in this town. Yeah. And I am really proud to call it home. And I look forward to the next generation of people feeling the same way and doing what they can to keep Bend good.
Well, I'll close on that. Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining me today.
You bet, Brian.
Thanks for joining us. This is the BENDbeat, and until next time.